All right. Hello, everyone. Um, Thank you so much for coming to this webinar. I apologize for the delay. Just a few technical difficulties, nothing really too crazy. Today, we're going to learn all about ear training. So ear training is basically being able to hear a song and then being able to replicate the melody. So what that means is you have to be able to hear what the different intervals are. What are intervals? Well, intervals are the different distances between notes. So hopefully you've all heard of solfege before. So that's the fun thing we learned probably in elementary school where we heard do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Well, going from each one of those syllables to the next is an interval. So we're going to talk about those intervals today. We're going to talk about hearing the difference between major chords and minor chords. And we're also going to be talking about figuring out when chords are actually broken, which means that we're only going to hear one note of those chords at a time. So I hope you are all ready. If you do, I recommend having a pencil or a paper or some sort of thing to take notes so that you are aware of what we're working on and you're able to write it down. All right, so if you're ready to begin, here we go. And then just in case you didn't know, my name is Will. Hi. All right, here we go. All right, so the very first interval we're going to be talking about today is called the second. So I'm going to hold this up and bear with me. Oh, there we go. Okay, I can see where my camera is. Thank you so much for being patient. So right here we have the second. So what we're doing is we're actually going up a step. Now this one is called a major second. Now a major second is going up a whole step. Now I know you can't see it, but actually down below us, I have a keyboard. We're going to be playing some notes that you can actually hear what the intervals sound like. So again, so here we are, we're at the major second, and we have right here, we have a B to C sharp. That's that do, re. When you hear them together, there we go. So that is a major second. When we, right here, we have something called a minor second. So here we're going from an A to a B flat. Now the difference between a major second and a minor second is that minor second is only going up a half step. So instead of hearing the, we're only going up half a step to, or do, re. Now, I don't know if you learned it, but a lot of the times if you're going to use something like solfege, they have something where they modify it in case there are any kind of accidentals, which is what we're looking at here. When we see this guy, the flat or the sharp sign, it's called an accidental. Again, I don't know if you have any experience with music theory. Hopefully you do. You need a little bit of music theory knowledge to work on your ear training. So again, that half step. Do, re. Now, one of the interesting things about intervals is there's actually songs that are built on intervals that you can identify just by listening. See if you can figure out this song. Yep, if you said Jaws, you are correct. So if you're having a hard time remembering a minor second, just think about Jaws and you'll definitely be able to remember what a minor second sounds like. All right, guys, well, let's go ahead and keep going to our next interval. So our next interval is actually going to be the third. So we just dealt with doing a one whole step or one half step. The third, as you can guess, is going to be two whole steps. Thirds are really important. We're actually going to learn toward the end when we get to the chords why we really need to know which thirds are major and which thirds are minor. And I do apologize if my hand is over it. There we go. So major and minor. So a major third that we have written here. So we have a B to a D. Sorry, that should be a G to a B. I apologize. I'm trying to rush, so I apologize. One more time. There we go. So that's do, mi, do, mi. We can also have that interval going downwards, as you can see, with that E to the C. Mi, do, mi, do. All right, so we have, as I said, that major third, do, mi, or mi, do. Now, if we play those together, you can hear what that major third sounds like. All right, now for the minor third. As I said, Minor, major, very important. There's a reason we're going over them. It does change the entire feeling of the song. It can make a song that's happy into a sad song, or a song that's supposed to be sad into a happy song. All right, so right here we have A and C. A and C is a minor third. Now the difference between the two, so if we're listening, when we have a major third, we have 2 full steps. That's why we have that nice bright sound. When we have a minor third, we only have 1 1/2 step. So as I said before, it really does change the quality of the song. Changes whether it's happy, sad, mysterious. Just like before, we can go downward with those intervals as well. Good. All right. So we're going to continue on, and I do apologize in case you are wondering, I'm not really able to get to the chat. I had to switch devices. Long story short, I don't know how to chat on this particular device, so I'm going to try to just answer everything by mouth if I do see it. So bear with me. All right, so moving on to the fourth. Now we're only going to talk about 1/4. There are 2 different kinds of fourths. But the one that we're going to do, since this is basic ear training, trying to get the basic intervals, I want to just focus on the perfect fourth. So you can see there, the fourth. We're looking at the perfect fourth. So what we have here, if we go from the E to the A, we have so just like before with the minor second, excuse me, there is a really popular tune that starts with that sound. So if you hear, "Here Comes the Bride," then you're probably hearing a perfect fourth. All right, so I hope everyone is keeping along. At the end of all the intervals, we're going to do a very short listening quiz, about 5 questions, and then I'll play them, and then I'll tell you what they are after I give you some time to think about what they are. Okay? All right, so moving on. So the fourth, we only have a few more to go. Well, we're moving on to the fifth. So the fifth. All right, we've made it to the fifth. Just like the fourth, there are 2 kinds of fifths, but we're only going to focus on the perfect fifth. Because again, this is basic ear training. So going ahead and looking at what we have written down here, we have that C to the E. We also have going downward, C to F. So let's take a listen. I'm sorry, not C to E, A to E. So do, so, right? Do, so. Now the other way, so, do. Now it'll hear the C to the F. So, do, so, do. Now, as you can see, obviously these intervals are going to change depending on what note we're starting on. That's why I'm trying to give you multiple notes to hear from. Just because, again, if you're listening to a song, you want to know how to sing it, you need to know where they went. Did they go up a perfect fifth? Maybe it was a fourth. The fourth and the fifth are actually close, so it is sometimes hard to distinguish the 2. Right? So we don't want to get confused. All right. So real quick, before we go on to the next one, we're going to do a very, very, very short quiz. So let's see if we can figure out these 4 intervals. I'm going to play them for you, and I'm going to give you about 10 to 20 seconds. Go ahead and write them down. Again, I can't see your responses. I am so sorry. I apologize. So I will reveal the answer, but I want you to, as I said, kind of grade yourself. See if you've got that interval. So here is the first interval, number 1. Let's play it. All right. Have your answers written down, hopefully. Good, good. All right, so interval number 1. Let's do interval number 2. We ready? Number 2. Number 2. So let's try this one. Do we have that one? I hope so. Let's move on to the next one. So the next interval we're going to play this one. Let's see if we can figure it out. What is that interval? Play it one more time. Okay, and now we're moving on to our fourth interval. So this is the fourth one we're going to do. We're only practicing the first 5 intervals we learned. We're going to learn a couple more. So here it is, the fourth one. Ready? All right, one more time. Okay, well, again, can't see if you had it done, but let me go ahead and let's go through the answers. So the first one, do, re, that's a second, right? It's a second, do, re, major second. Good, so nothing too hard there. The second one, number 2 was do, mi, that's a third. All right, now I threw a little bit of a curveball for number 3, I'll admit it. Let's hear it again. Do, so. That's that 5th, right? That's the one we did last. And then the very last interval that we did for this quiz, our number 4, is do, fa, 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 our 4th. Fantastic. All right, so we got the first 4, first 4 intervals. We didn't talk about unison because we don't need that. We know that if it's a note, it's a note. All right, we're going to move on to the outer intervals. I like to call them the outer intervals just because I tend to find people either have an easier time hearing those smaller intervals, the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, or 5th, or they have an easy time hearing the larger intervals, the 6th, the 7th, or the octave. All right, so first things first, let's talk about 6th. So 6th, we're going up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There we go. That's where the 6 came from. All right. So let's go ahead and hear what we have here. So we have the F to the D. That's a major 6. So do, la, do, la. Now, for all of you who were like me and you grew up watching television, this one's really easy if you remember that lovely TV station that had the peacock as their symbol, NBC. Yes, that is the major 6. Now, I have no idea, that may not be something in your radar, but that's one way to remember it. All right, now let's go ahead and check out the minor 6. So again, instead of going up all the way those 6 steps, we only went about 5.5 to get to the minor 6. So the minor 6, we have that E to the C. Now, if you're doing solfege, do, re. This one's actually one of the hardest ones to pick out because if we think about it, that 5th is right there. And then if we wanted to do like a 7th, those two are a lot easier to hear. So that minor 6th, do, re, is actually, from what I've experienced with my students and in my personal music studies, one of the hardest ones to actually identify. So we'll keep working on that. Now we're going to go to the 7th. So the 7th, yes, there are major and minor 7ths, but in particular, what I want to talk about today is the major 7th. We're talking about it because it has a very special name. Now, normally, if I was able to read it, I'd say, what is it called? And I'm sure someone out there knows exactly what that 7th is called. But in case you don't know, let's go ahead and look at our little board here. So that 7th is actually called the leading tone. Now, it's called the leading tone because it's leading you to the very next interval that we're going to be talking about. So this is the do to T. So we have here F to E. Do, T, Now notice that it has that really grinding sound, right? Do, ti. Now that's because if you were to look at it, it's only a half step away from the note that's an octave above, which is a whole 8 steps above the first note. Do, ti. So it gives you that really kind of grinding quality. For those of you who are newer to music or aren't very aware of what music terminology is, that grinding sound is actually called dissonance. Dissonance is used to kind of build some sort of tension in music, or to really make you want to go to the next thing. So again, so we have that 7. Do, ti. Then going backwards, we have the F sharp to the G. See, it's a very awkward interval, which makes it very, very easy to identify. I would say that the 7th is one of the easiest ones to identify just because of how much space is in between. All right, so we've made it to the last interval we're going to talk about before we talk about chords. So our last interval, I've said it a couple times, there's no fancy name for this one. It is just the octave. There are no perfect or major or minor octaves. It's either an octave or it's not an octave. There's no rhyme or reason to it. Octave or no octave. So an octave is literally the note to the next one, the E to the E, or that F down to an F. That one is extremely easy to figure out. However, I will say, if you mix octaves in with those major 6, those minor 6, and those leading tones, it can get really confusing. You can tell that you have this huge jump you want to make and almost miss it sometimes. In fact, most people, when they're listening to a song and they're really trying to learn it by using their ear, so again, this is ear training, we're trying to hear those intervals, they may confuse an octave for a fifth. So now when I play it like that, it doesn't sound like they're very close. But if you're singing a song, it can feel very close. Same thing with playing an instrument, okay? It could be very easy to confuse those two. All right, so I'm going to do, so this is interval quiz number 2. The reason why I split it in half, I was gonna do all one big quiz at the end, but again, as I said before, some people have an easier time hearing the smaller intervals. Some people have an easier time hearing the larger intervals. So I wanted to make sure that I'm talking to everybody because I don't know you guys. Thank you for coming. But of course, I've never met you before, so I don't know what's easier for you to hear, and I want you to be successful. All right, so here we go. Here is our 3. We're only doing 3. Here's our 3-question quiz. We're going to start. So here's our first interval. Number 1. All right. One more time. I hope you wrote it down. All right. So number 2. Here we go. All right. And here is number 3. We will do okay. I hope we have it. Okay. So the first one, that was the octave. So I hope you had that down. Octave. 8. Do, do. All right, the next one, I did throw a little wrench in there. I did something we didn't do in the last 3. I did what we did in the first 4. Do, sol, the 5th. There's a reason why I put that in this particular quiz. We're going to learn in just a second when we move on to the chords. If you caught that, very good job. If not, that's okay. Obviously, if you're coming to this class, I'm expecting that either you're interested in ear training, you've never done it before, or it's something that's a little bit more difficult. These kind of exercises are what we need to do to go ahead and build that, that hearing in our ears, so we're able to go ahead and use what's called relative pitch to decide the type of interval we're listening to. All right, the last one I did, ooh, that's a grinding sound, that dissonance. Do, ti, do, ti. That's 7. So as I said, the 7th is really, really easy to go ahead and figure out because it's just so grinding. It's Very, very easy. Okay, so moving on. So as I said, in this class, we're going to figure out when we're listening to major chords and minor chords. Now, if you're somebody who's singing, why is this important? Well, it's important because it's going to give you a hint as to whether the melody is going to have a major interval or minor interval, the happy sounding interval, or the more mysterious or sad sounding interval. If you're an instrumentalist, you may need to know that because you're actually going to try to play the chords, right? A chord is 3 notes. If you're singing, do, mi, so is the root chord or the first chord in the scale. That's the easiest way to learn chords. So let's take a look at our little chord cheat sheet. Chords. All right, so what we have here is our major chord. Now, this is very important. A major chord is built on a major third with a minor third on top. All right, so I'm going to say it one more time because this is key. It is essential. It is what makes a major chord major. It is built with a major third on the bottom and a minor third on the top. So right here we have the F major chord. So F to A, do, mi, that's that major chord. And the A to C, mi, so is actually a minor chord. Okay. Hope we have that. So major chord, one more time, just in case you're writing it down. I know sometimes writing things down takes a little bit longer. The big takeaway from major chords is we have a major third on the bottom and a minor third on the top. All right, let's move over to minor chords. As you can tell, I'm used to teaching most of the kids, so I apologize if I'm a little over animated. Minor chords are a little bit different, right? So to make them minor, we need that minor third on the bottom. So these 2 notes are a minor third and a major third on top. One more time, in case you cannot read my handwriting. A minor third on the bottom with a major third on the top makes the chord a minor chord. So here we have the A minor chord, A, C, E. Do, mi, so. See? So A to C is minor. It has that more mysterious or darker sound, whereas C to E has that major sound. Okay, so the reason we really need to know if it's a major chord or a minor chord is because, again, songs are built on scales, they're built on chords, they're built on arpeggios. So we need to be able to identify this with our ear if we're going to replicate our favorite song. All right, so the last thing we're going to talk about, and then we're going to do a small quiz on chords. All right, last thing we're going to talk about is doing broken chords. So obviously it would be very, very odd if we only heard songs that ever did chords. So we always heard all the songs would sound exactly the same if this is all we ever heard. But if we vary that and we make the chord broken, we can actually make it a little bit more interesting. Now, I will say what I just played, in case you don't know, is probably one of the most common chord progressions in all music. You're going to hear a bunch of songs with those chords. But never fear, we're not talking about actually distinguishing between different chord names right now, like the A minor, the F major. That's for something after you're more used to the intervals. First things first, get the intervals. What I want you to hear is a broken chord. So, broken chord. Broken chord. We have major and we have minor, just like before. Now, this time, instead of playing all those notes all in a row, remember how they were all stacked up before? We are hearing one note at a time. Okay, so one note at a time. So just like before, the major chord has that major third and that minor third, but we're hearing one part at a time. Do, mi, so. Now, obviously, if you're singing do, mi, so, you're always singing broken chords. You're not able to sing all those notes at once. or at least most people aren't. I don't know. There might be someone out there that can, but you're singing one note at a time. Same thing if you're an instrumentalist, like a flute player, like I happen to play the flute. So I'd be playing one of those notes at a time. If I were to play on a trumpet or a baritone or anything that plays only one note at a time, you'll always play broken chords. That's not the same if you're playing piano or guitar or harp or any other chorded instrument. Excuse me. All right, so now moving back to the minor chord, minor chords. So we have that minor third at the bottom and the major third, just like before. I apologize. I'm still getting used to where that particular camera is. All right, minor third, major third, right? That do, re, so. Good. So if I played that same progression, but I switched between broken chords and I switched between the solid chords, the blocked chords is what we call those, you would hear probably a more interesting sound. Now that's a lot harder to distinguish, right? Especially if we're using our ear. There's a lot going on there. So if you're just getting used to using your ear to play your favorite song, hearing those broken notes in between might really be confusing. So that's why we need to be aware of when the chords are broken and when the chords are blocked. So we are going to do 4 chords as our quiz. So hang tight. We're going to do the 4 chords. Just note down if you think it's blocked, and if you think it's major or minor, or if you think it's broken or major or minor. So here we go. Here is our very first chord. Ready? All right. Major, minor, blocked, or broken? Okay. Moving on to our second chord, just because we are running out of time. Again, I apologize. My bad. Let's do this one. Is that major? Is it minor? Is it broken or is it blocked? All right, we're going to keep going. Here's the next one. One more. Major, minor, blocked, or broken. Okay, and last one. Major, minor, blocked, or broken. Okay, so really quick, let me give you the answer. So the first one, that's very sad sounding, isn't it? It is a minor chord and it is blocked. All of the chords are happening at once. Number 2. Oh, that's very happy. That's a major chord and we broke that chord up. All right, next one. Still a major chord, right? So it's still a very happy, bright sound, but this time we blocked it. We put them all in one row. And last one. Yep, we're back to a sad, mysterious sound. That is the minor chord, and that one is broken. All right, so I really hope that you guys were able to take good notes and that you'll be able to distinguish all of the different intervals. Remember, we talked about the major second, the minor second, major third, minor third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, major sixth, minor sixth, the major seventh or leading tone, the octave. We talked about the major chord that was blocked. We talked about the minor chord that was blocked. We talked about the major chord that was broken up. And we also talked about the minor chord that was broken. So there's a lot of information there. If ever you want to, go ahead and continue working on ear training, you can always go ahead and find me on Take Lessons. I do offer lessons in ear training as well as, music theory and several different instruments. So please look there. Ear training is really important. I just really want to say this before I go. Ear training is really important for everyone who's a musician. So we're talking about instrumentalists, whether you're playing keyboards, guitars, a flute, a trumpet, a trombone, whatever it is, you need to be able to use your ear. If you can read music and use your ear together, that's going to give you the best outcome. Singers, it's almost imperative. You can't sing if you can't hear, right? You have to be able to hear what you're doing to sing. We don't have buttons. So since there's no buttons, we definitely need our ear to be at its top game. All right, well, thank you so much for having patience with me. I really appreciate it. I know that several of you are probably sitting and waiting, and I'm so sorry, but thank you so much for coming and staying with me. I hope you guys had an awesome time and that you took great notes. And hopefully I'll see some of you in the tape lessons. If not, have a great night. All right, bye everyone.